It was more out of disgust out of myself. Like, why am I listening and reading or listening to all these books and I'm not doing shit with it? I need information that I can take action on now.
All right, welcome to Amazing Marketing. I'm Dmitry Smirnov here with Chris Gray. Chris, how are you?
Dimitri, what is up, man?
All is good. Always a good time recording with you. I'm excited for this. We got some really great topics, plus a cool segment. And yeah, just great to see you. How are you?
I'm good, man. A little tired. Took the family to Colorado this past, I don't know, 6 days, I guess. Yeah, we're there for 6 days, and it's right now as we are recording. It is the end of February, or towards the end of February. It's still snowing in Colorado, really cold. I'm a Texas boy, man, so I'm not used to all like that. Was all of that was new to me. To be in snow that's waist high, it's just a totally different thing. But I'm happy to be back. I'm dealing with some brain fog that happens when you're gone for a while, and so I'm still trying to I don't know, get back into it. So if I'm not making sense today, if I sound dumber than normal today, I ask for forgiveness.
I definitely can relate to the brain fog after a vacation. You think you're going to get a break, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to work on this vacation. Finally, I'm going to take some time off, and then you actually do when you have to get back to work. You're very confused. Where am I? And what is everything? Everything has passed by you already, even though it's only been a week.
Yes. And what's sad here is I took some time off during the weekend, nobody's bothering me. So it was all good. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, I had to check in. I had to do something, or I had to answer emails, this and that. And I noticed when we can get, I don't want to take us off the rails too much, but what I learned, Dimitri, is that I have way too much stuff running through me, or way too many people dependent on me. So it was kind of hard to be fully away, right? And so I'm not fully in it. And I wasn't fully out of it for about half of my vacation. And still, I come back with the brain fog.
I don't think that's super unusual. Okay. Like, I think a lot of people have the experience you're having. I've had it. I've talked to my dad. He's had it. It's like half the vacation is just getting in the mindset of the vacation.
Yes.
So that's why when you go for a week, you always feel like you didn't get enough because you really only had half the week. That's why I think 10 days is kind of the sweet spot because the first three, four, you're just transitioning into vacation mode. Then you need the 7 days.
You hit the nail on the head. I was telling my friend there, a buddy that I visited, that it takes me about 3 days just to settle in, and then even after that, I wasn't fully. I don't know. So yeah, very good point.
Well, maybe it'll take you 3 days to settle back into work. I guess that's just how it works. We're 3 day
Yeah.
creatures.
Yes, sir. Well, what
All
do we
right.
have on the segment today?
Yeah. So today's segment's called Didn't Look at It That Way, where we're going to explore a topic where maybe something is traditionally looked at in a certain way, and then maybe somebody or something can change your mind about it, make you look at it in a different way. And if you're trying to be a positive person, then you're taking negative things and turning them into positive. Typically, that's how it'll go. So, this topic was inspired by, I think, a YouTube video I was watching because that's kind of my guilty pleasure at this point. It used to be Twitter. I've now deleted that because I realized after looking at my screen time on my phone that was not a good thing to be doing. But it's now moved over to YouTube, but a little bit more productive, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it.
Okay, so this is from Naval Ravikant, which I really like listening to him. He's the founder of Angels List. He's done a lot of different things, and he's a big fan of sharing his philosophy on Twitter and other places. Now it's on YouTube. So what he was saying was that most people, let's say like us, or entrepreneurs or driven people, are obsessed with information. I think they're addicted to information. I'm addicted to information. I think a lot of us are. And also, we want to appear smart, especially in certain circles. So, one way that we accomplish that is by reading as many books as possible. Anytime we have a free moment, we read a book, and we don't sometimes don't even allow ourselves to read a fictional book. It has to be nonfiction, it has to be business related, marketing related, blah blah blah. And it's hundreds of books that you cannot remember a single idea from them if you're just racing through
Hmm.
them. And he's offering a proposal. Why not just reread the best 10 books over and over again?
So this is the whole principle of deep is better than wide, basically, is what he's saying here. Um, I like this for several reasons, and I agree with I agree with what he's saying, but also I have a hard time following it as a general principle. But before we jump into it, me taking us off the tracks, it's cool that you. I saw that you put um, Naval up here, and just being totally candid with everybody listening, and you, Dimitri, we were at our mastermind in January last month. Long story short, I ended up going to dinner with his brother Kamal and a few other people. And at the table, Dimitri, like, Dimitri, you've been doing this for a while. You've been kind of in the marketing circle. You've been on stages. You've been running your business. You're more mature in the world than I am, and in your business as I am. I'm
That's
relatively,
debatable.
at
Mature,
least I
very
think so.
debatable. Sometimes, but
Well, I think compared to me overall, you're ahead. Not in a very good way. Like, you've been doing it for a while. My point of this story is, I'm sitting at that table, and I'm like, how in the hell did I get at this table? I'm not sure if that's ever happened to you, because I'm looking at everybody around the table, and from a net worth perspective, I most certainly am the brokest person. And then probably from an IQ perspective, likely the dumbest person, and most certainly the least famous person at this table. And I'm like, what in the hell am I doing at this table? Which then the good thing, and we'll get into this. Well, you're talking about, I didn't look at it that way. It took me a while to realize that, hey, at least I'm at the table, right? So, anyways, you saying this about the Robicon, I'm like, holy shit, I had whatever dinner with his brother, which is not I'm not going to go around. I wouldn't go around telling people that. It just happened to come up in this conversation. Now, back to what I think. Or go ahead, please, please. What are your thoughts on
no.
this?
Well, first I just want to interject a little bit. Is I think that when you find yourself at a table like that, and in that case, what it sounded like to me is you fit right in. So I think you're doing quite a few things right, and maybe you're more mature than you give yourself credit for.
Well, I I appreciate it. I don't always feel like that, but thank you, brother.
Yeah, and you know what? You're not going to feel like that getting out of your comfort zone, but that's where the real growth happens. That's super cliche, but I think it's worth repeating.
Yes, and it goes to your point. It's looking at it in a different way. Is this discomfort, this insecurity is good because I'm in a territory that I've never really been in. Now, going back to your what you brought up with this quote, um, I agree 1,000%. I ran into this issue, which I think I told you here recently, where I used to find a book, just let me consume a book, let me consume a book, let me consume a book. And it got to a point, our friend Jason Fladlin uses this term, I stole it from him, is that ends up being mental masturbation. That's it. Like,
That's
that's
what it
exactly what
is.
it is. Yeah. And then, um, and I agree with the whole reading 10 books is better than reading 100. I haven't really shrank it down to reading books as much as what I've been doing now, Dimitri, is I watch Zoom calls. We have a brand new business that we're building, and it's in the world of email marketing and publishing that I have never really, been in. And I'm leading this thing. So what am I doing? I'm rewatching all my Zoom calls with the partners we're working with so that I could make sure I get it. And if I have a meeting today, like, for here's an example. I have a meeting that happens once a week with a bunch of the big dogs in there. So what do I do? The day of that meeting, I make sure I watch the previous week's meeting and take notes and follow up on questions. That way, for that call, I sound like I know what the heck I'm doing. I sound much smarter than I am. It's not that I'm smart. It's just that I actually went back and listened to the last call and
Yeah.
had some questions or the things I didn't think to ask in that moment, and I bring them up on the current week's call. But I've been doing that with several things: is watching a lot of Zooms or courses that I can implement that day or that week. That was a lot of me talking. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a really seemingly obvious strategy to do, is review your notes, but I don't think anybody does it. So how did you figure out that that's a productive use of time?
It was more out of disgust out of myself. Like, why am I listening and reading or listening to all these books and I'm not doing shit with it? I need information that I can take action on now. So what does that look like? It might be a course for something that I'm trying to do that week. It might be watching some Zoom video of something that I'm in, but whatever it is, whatever I'm consuming, I need to be able to take action on it that day or that week.
Yeah, that's a really cool principle because, like you're saying, even if we're consuming information that is productive, quote unquote, or related to business, it's more of entertainment value. We just transition our entertainment from watching a Netflix series to watching something on YouTube that's informative, but it's not really changing our lives in any way. And I'm going to throw another Naval quote at you because I was on a kind of like I went on a streak of just watching all his videos this past weekend. And so I'm going to throw this other quote at you that I thought was interesting, kind of related to reframing. And here it is. It's the only real test of intelligence is if you get what you want out of life.
The only real test of intelligence is if you get what you want out of life. Isn't Naval?
Yeah, and let me so I know that's like a really deep quote, so I'm going to let you think about it while I just speak for a little. um, Essentially what he's saying, this is going back to what you were saying at the table, is about talking about net worth or talking about popularity or being famous or this and that, and everyone gets to pick what they want in life, whether it is net worth or whatever. He also talks about winning the game. If you're playing the money game, that's good and you need to play the money game, but at some point you need to stop if you've won the game, and knowing when to stop after you've won is important. That's kind of cool. So picking what you want out of life is kind of a big part of this quote, where a lot of times people are copying others. Oh, getting a big house must be what I need to go after, or getting the most money possible, or whatever. But maybe in the case that the dinner that you had, that type of experience, that's what you wanted out of life. That's what all of them wanted out of life. They weren't looking for building their portfolio in that moment. They just wanted the connection, and that's what you guys got.
You are the second person in the last, I don't know, 5 days that kind of talked about this. And what I mean by this is like somebody was talking to me about dreams, like these dreams that they have and that they're working towards. And they're like, well, what are your dreams? And I was like, shit, I don't know. Like, I have these goals. I don't know the difference between dreams and goals. There's a difference there, but for me, they're all kind of spaghetti dreams and goals. And I'm like, and it doesn't even matter what my damn dream is or my goal is. Like, there's something that I need to do today that's boring as hell that I need to do over like every single day for the next 3 to 5 years to hit my dreams and goals. And so I'm just going to focus on this thing I need to hit, this boring thing I need to do to accomplish my dreams or goals. Now, here's the thing. What I'm noticing with the dreams or goals, something that you said that stood out to me is that that goal line keeps moving. And when I hit the goal or whatever it is, it's anticlimactic, right? It's kind of like, oh, all right, I hit it. Well, what's the next thing? The next thing. So for you, what are you, what are your thoughts on that quote, and how does your life look to like, what does it look like for you today in regard to that quote? Like, do you have something where hey, I'm going to stop and work on something else, or is your goal line continuously moving?
Whew, deep question. I think the goal has to continuously move for a while, until you actually reach the ultimate goal in that game that you played. For example, let's take the money game for example. Let's if you say to yourself, if I make, or if I have $20 million liquid net, a lot of money, that means I never have to work again. If I don't want to, I don't have, actually better said, I don't have to work on anything I don't want to. I never have to spend my time doing anything I don't want to be doing. So, but going from, let's just say going from zero to $20 million, very hard, nearly impossible. But going from zero to $10,000, from 10,000 to 100,000, from 100,000 to a million, and so on, and taking steps by step. So you
Mm,
have to break things up. When I was an ice hockey referee, Okay, like I used to do a lot of game. I would referee a lot of games. That was my income. The way to get through a game, let's say I have 3 games scheduled in a row, that's 4.5 hours on ice skates, and fully mentally engaged into the game if you want to do it properly and be a good referee. So it's a difficult challenge. And to get yourself up to that, like, oh man, I got to do this for 4.5 hours, is difficult. But I can break it up into games. It's 3 games. Every game has a period. Every period is 15 to 20 minutes. I can break that into pieces. And so I think that's what we're always doing, breaking goals into pieces. But once we've reached the goal, we need to stop. And sometimes we don't know when.
Is there a difference between a dream and a goal for you?
A goal is something that's achievable. I could see the path to getting there. And then I think the dream is more abstract, unrealistic, at least in the current moment, or maybe more far out, years down the line or decades. That's more so a dream if there's no plan to get there.
That makes sense. And I also wonder, there could be several arguments for this, but it's like, I guess Dimitri, I struggle with the whole dream and goals thing. So I'm like, dreams have been accomplished. So if you're going to dream it up, why not take actions to get towards it? It's that whole cliche is you could, you aim for the moon, and if you fall short, you land with the stars or something, right? And so isn't that how it is with
Is one
does
or
that
the
make
other.
sense?
Maybe aim for the stars or land at the moon or one of
Yeah,
those. But
moon.
in both cases,
Yeah,
I, sure, aim big, of course. But I think having a plan, it doesn't have to be written out concretely. But if you can picture the steps to get to your dream, then it becomes a goal,
got it.
in my opinion.
What were your thoughts on the original quote of the 10 books over and over better than 100?
First, I think it's important to determine which 10 books those are going to be. And without reading books, you can't ever determine what the top 10 are. I mean, you could take somebody's word for it.
Yes.
For example, let's say Naval, you like his work, you say, hey, what are the 10 best books? And you can read his 10. But for everybody, it's going to be different. So you have to read through some books to get to your 10. But once you do, I don't think it's set in stone. You can now only read these 10 for the rest of your life. Maybe you keep reading one old one new one, and then back to an old one, and then a new one until you can get another new one that can become an old one that you can start rereading. But I do agree that the best content, meaning like a best book, a best YouTube video, a best Zoom meeting, whatever, is a category or an exponential more valuable than the next step down in content. So I'd rather, for example, when it comes to marketing or explaining it simply, the Hormozy books are really great in my opinion. It just does a great job explaining them. So I would rather read those 10 times and digest everything than 10 different marketing books.
What is the one book that you've read the most?
I like scientific advertising. It's scientific advertising by, let's see, I think I forgot what the author's name is, but let me see if I can Google him really quick. Scientific advertising. It's a short book, and it just goes into principles of traditional advertising. Okay, Claude Hopkins. Claude Hopkins,
Yeah.
really good book, short, simple to
Old
the
book, huh?
point with examples. Yeah, I've read that one several times. I love that one for marketing because it's quick and easy to digest, and man, principles are great.
I am going to make note of that right now. Um, you didn't ask, I'm going to tell you anyways. The one that I read the most was The Magic of Thinking Big. Um, it's an old book. And when I say read, I mean listen to. This is back when I was in corporate America. I would just have this thing playing on a loop almost. So I couldn't even tell you how many times I listened to it. Um, and it's kind of, I thought it was quite, I mean, I got out of corporate America, right? And got the whole business thing going and all that, and that's great. But looking back, I thought that it was interesting, an interesting picture of the magic of thinking big when I'm like in a cubicle, right? But you got to start somewhere. So, and not knocking on anybody who works in a cubicle, but for me, I just felt trapped and felt like I was another cog in this wheel. I'm sitting there trying to think big and got out of it. But anyways, that's the book that I've read the most.
Nice. Well, it seems like it had an effect on you.
It did.
Some speaking of the cubicle thing, I think a lot of people, they don't like working at cubicles, but they like the reliability of that position. They know that they'll always have a job there. They know what it looks like getting in the morning and leaving in the evening. They can leave work at home. Entrepreneurship is so much different. Running your own business is so different, and it never ends. There's no vacation. There's no true vacation, really. If you're in it,
Yeah.
if you're really in it, you don't know your revenues month to month. You don't know your expenses month to month. It's just a lot tougher in a different way than sitting in a cubicle.
You hit the nail on the head. There's when it comes to corporate America sitting in a cubicle, 100% correct. Like you can take a vacation from your corporate job and truly not check in. I did it right. I've done it before. There's other corporate people who they work like they're entrepreneurs and they'll still be working while they're on, which I never understood, especially if everything's running while you're not there. Anyways, um, but the one thing that I think, at least I was blind to, is that corporate America for me was an illusion of security, an illusion of safety. Because, yeah, you're right. People show up, they think they have a job, you're going to get paid the same amount or whatever it is, or get paid for working overtime, or it all seems like just guaranteed. And it's not. I led a business at a corporation. I walk in one day and I was called and I had to fire like 90% of my staff. It's not safe. You could show up any day and it's gone. But there's this illusion of safety with it, I think.
Hmm. Dang, that's a good point. An illusion of safety, and you're working at a place you don't want to be. Typically, you don't want to
Yes.
go to the office. You don't want to sit in the cubicle. Um, Dang, that's. But okay, now with working from home, more and more is leaving the office. Hopefully, that's better for everyone.
I think so. It provides a level of freedom that I think everybody needs. And I think that if you're a smart corporation, you can give people the illusion of freedom, right? Like you give them the illusion of safety. Um, Here are these boundaries with your time, just stay within them. And I think that people are much more productive when they think that they own their schedule, or at least feel like they own their schedule. I know I am.
I, Humans are funny because and we use these psychological both fears and desires in marketing, and we can touch on these too, but I think humans have the desire for freedom and they have the desire to be taken care of at the same time, which is
Hmm.
the kind of a juxtaposition against it. We have conflicting desires. You can't be free and be taken care of at the same time, really.
That's I've never thought about it like that.
So do you picture
Yeah.
yourself ever going back to corporate America?
Hell no. I mean, I'll do whatever it takes to feed my daughter, right? So I'll do whatever. But I would try several other things prior to that, like that involved me making my own money. Um, but man, it was just for me, corporate America was it just drains the life out of you. I did it for way too long.
Plus the commute,
Yeah, the commute and the game you got to play
politics.
and
Yeah.
politics, and it's just like we're all it's, who's the short or who's the tallest midget. And I don't mean that by offense to anybody, but that's how I felt. Like everybody's in this room playing, competing for the. I mean, who gives a shit about this piece of paper? We're not even getting paid or a bonus for this piece of paper that you earned that said you did this or hit that or your team did this or did that, and you get this. Let's treat you like kids. Hey, you get this pizza party or get this whatever half
Pizza
day you guys
buffet.
can go. Yeah, like serious, man. And so it wasn't it not for me, man. It's just not for me.
I think okay. I'm gonna close this segment with I think another Naval quote. Seriously,
Oh,
I went on a binge of Naval. And now this maybe this a paraphrase from him, or maybe he's quoting somebody else, but it was play stupid games, win stupid prizes. How important it is to choose which game you want to play in advance rather than getting caught up. I think Peter Thiel talks about this too, where he was going to go to law school. He was in the whole Supreme Court circuit as a lawyer or pre-law or something like that, and then he realized, why am I even doing this? This is a very hard job, doesn't pay very well. Winning this game, what does that look like? It doesn't look very appealing, and he just left it to go into business.
yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's kind of what you summed up. What I was thinking with corporate America, stupid game and legit stupid prizes. And I've heard that quote before. It was really popular a few years ago. And I would hear it in the martial arts or self defense community. Like if somebody broke into your house, plays stupid games, you win stupid prize, about to get shot.
Right, right.
Um, so I would see that in those scenarios a lot.
Okay, so we are all going to work on reframing, looking at things differently, and optimizing what we're working on. What game are we playing, and trying to do more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff, more of the better books and less of the bad ones, and really digest the information and take action. Most importantly, like you were saying, if you can't take action on it, is it even valuable right now?
I like that, man. It was a good. That's an interesting segment, and it's something that's going to be on my radar a bit more. I like the quote that you tickled out of this.
All right, well, let's move on to the main topic. And this is all the rage right now in terms of marketing, in terms of content creation. It's called Sora by OpenAI. They just came out with this text to video platform. And this is the same company that runs ChatGPT. So these guys are on fire. They're saying this may be the quickest company to $1 trillion valuation. I don't know where they stand right now, but I think they got to 100 billion, and they're a privately owned company, so I don't know the exact valuation. But these guys are just bringing out the newest and best in AI, and Sora was the latest. And in fact, I read this article on Yahoo.com. Ashamed to say I was on Yahoo again, but apparently Tyler Perry, well-known actor, producer, and so on in Hollywood. I believe he has a studios in Atlanta, Georgia. He stopped production on an $800 million studio expansion the day he saw Sora from OpenAI.
I did not know that. Did Go ahead.
The thinking is he's saying this may he just needs to wait and see because this may take way more jobs than what we thought previously, because you can just write text and it creates studio quality unique video.
I just heard about this earlier this week, and lightly read about it. And I believe that Google is working, or I forget what their version of this is. They have some kind of text to video thing they're working on. But OpenAI is, to your point, is clearly the leader with AI right now. Clearly the leading company. As far as getting back to what you're saying with this Tyler Perry thing and him stopping production, I'm not mad at him for that. I mean, you don't want to build it. You spend $800 million when you come to find out you could have spent three or whatever. But here's my thought, and you tell me what you think. When it comes to this AI stuff, at this right now, here we are, February 2024, where AI is at right now. I feel like even with a tool like this, that if you are a badass video producer, video whatever, you make VSLs, whatever, this is a tool that will make you even more awesome. And if you don't know what the hell you're doing, you're going to use this tool and still not know what the hell you're doing. It will just not be as great. So do you think that this Tyler's, I think yes, and yes, it will take a few jobs away, but I don't think it will destroy entire industries. At least not yet. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's kind of funny when we say we're going to take away jobs. Kind of, I don't know if you've seen that South Park episode, or they kind of do it all the time. Like they
They
took our
took our
jobs.
jobs.
Yeah, and that's not real. Like, yes, some jobs are going away. Other jobs are coming in a big, fast way. The same way we didn't know what jobs the car would bring. For we didn't know about even taxi drivers before car, and then now there's horse and buggy and whatever. There's an evolution to it. Is my point. So if you're a producer of content, if you're a videographer that's coming up, you don't know how to use these AI tools. What I would say is quit what you're doing and learn the AI tools.
Yeah.
And you can not just keep your job, but you can excel in the industry, and is going to be changing. So instead of having to film much of what's going to happen in Hollywood, and I kind of have an idea of how this is going to look like and be customized to everybody, where you can you can literally request the show that you're watching to be in a certain style and to go in a certain direction. Kind of like one of those books, like Goosebumps used to be. I don't know if you read those books, but you can pick your own adventure. I think that's how shows are going to be because of AI, and all the content will just be generated based off of prompts that are written in advance, and you don't need people to record it, to act it, and all that stuff. So jobs going away, new jobs, better jobs, more leveraged jobs coming fast.
You just said something. You said a few things, but do you think that it will get to a point where um, entire movies are made of AI and fake actors and actresses?
I do think that's going to happen, but that leads me into the deeper question that I wanted to ask you is, in this age where anything can be created in an instant from a content perspective, what will real people actually care about and what will they want to see from their content? So just because it can be created, are they going to want to watch it, or are they going to crave something else, and what exactly will they be looking out for?
That's a good question. I have no idea what the answer would be. I think that at the end of the day, when we went with a question like that, is I don't know the answer, but if I'm searching for it, it's going to come down to what's in it for the person, what's in it for them. And I think as long as let's say it's a movie or a story and it's all AI, if it accomplishes the task of really removing them from their current world and putting them into some other different reality where they really identify and connect with the characters emotionally, as long as it does that, I don't think people give a shit, right? I mean, think about all the great movies that we've watched and we don't know the actors. No idea. Don't know what their names, don't know what he or she start, whatever they start in. But for that movie, for that time of period, they took us out of our world and put us in there. So if AI could do that, I don't think people give a shit as long as they're getting what they came for.
Hmm. Wow, that's actually a much different perspective than I thought. This is really interesting to hear that, because what you're saying is it really won't matter. AI, as long as the story does its job, it has to take you out. Which is, and by the way, I was just last night, and this was a recommendation book from one of the masterminds that we're in. It was talking about hypnosis is in trance, and that's what you're in when you're in that state
Yes.
of just removing you don't know you're on the couch watching a movie or in a crowded theater of 150 people. You just by yourself in this own world. Or if you're reading an amazing story over email or on a blog, it's the same thing. You're in a trance. So man, I guess AI is going to be able to do that. So yeah, and Hollywood's probably freaking out about it, especially the actors and their the people that represent the actors. What is it, the skill guild? No, what's
Actors
it's a
Guild
union.
or,
Yeah, some union
yeah,
that they're
whatever
part
that
of,
shit
probably
is.
fighting it. Dang.
I,
Dang. It's kind of sad
that,
though, right? Like it's like, dang, I want people to still be valuable.
I think we will, but I think you hit the nail on the head where, it's going to, AI eventually will destroy certain jobs as we know it today, but it's going to create entirely different ones, entirely new ones that require a new skill set or somebody who's very skilled at using AI because I'm not going to be making movies with AI. I don't plan to go down that rabbit hole. Somebody else eventually will. But I do think you said something. I think, yeah, we should not be concerned about AI taking jobs. It will destroy entire jobs. But I think that it's going to create some, like I just said. But I also think on the opposite side of that, what else is true is that some people should be worried about their jobs. I think, in particular, Americans. And let me tell you why. With the advent of AI right now, you and I can go to South America with somebody who has a very palatable accent, who's on our time zone, who has most of the same holidays as we do, and we can use AI tools to make that individual even more even more effective. And here's another thing: just because they're in South America doesn't mean that we're talking about somebody who's not a skilled laborer. These are very smart people who are, as our friend Cosmo says, these are people who lost the geographical lottery. They could be, if they were in this country, they'd be a CEO of some company. They end up working, they end up being born in some town and, or some part of Argentina where they just lost a geographical lottery. Here's my point: with tools like AI, we can take that person back then and magnify them, and they're already good at what they do, and we will pay that person like significantly less money than we pay somebody who lives in America just because of the cost of living. So I think these tools, and I'm just talking about South America, um, places like the Philippines or India, where there's a language barrier sometimes, or potentially could be. Or I'm just gonna flat out say it. Like, some people don't like to hear the Indian accent on the phone, especially with customer service. AI is going to eventually eliminate that, and you will hear somebody talking. They'll sound like a good old American from Texas or something. Really, they're in India, getting paid nothing, but doing the job more effectively than somebody here in the U.S. I think we see more of that as well.
That makes sense, especially now because there's the market inefficiency because of geography, because of currencies, and that kind of can go into what's valuable in general in the real world. Some people believe that money is money, but not all money is the same. As we like in the US dollar is pretty dang stable, all things considered. It's the most stable currency by far in the world, despite inflation fears and all that. But in South America, in Argentina, for example, especially in Venezuela, but both I think are equally as hyperinflated. It's not stable, so people are going now to a digital but arguably much more stable place into Bitcoin, for example. Um, and so, what is valuable about that is maybe a different conversation, but um, yeah, I completely agree with you that it's good for the world economy, probably bad for people in the US who aren't going to get their act together and learn these tools.
I think 100%. I think that there's always going to be a need for non-skilled labor. It's just something there'll be a need, right? You can't AI away painting your house or getting your house painted. Like, that's not happening. Um, am I saying that's not skilled labor? Because ask me to paint and you will easily see that there's a skill to it, right? So, but my point is, there's going to be certain things that won't be able to, you can AI away. But like, if you made your living bagging groceries, that's going to get rough. If you made your living being a cashier or checking people out at different places, that's going to be rough because AI is going to take away jobs like that.
Yeah, so it sounds like society is going to split between the physical manual jobs and knowing AI tools.
Oh yeah,
And those are kind of the two options. Now, okay, I wanted to throw a little bit of a wrench in this
let's do it.
conversation by proposing the following. People love new, they love custom, they love um, when when something is just pristine, let's say. But I want to throw some real world examples at you about what's valuable. Take a painting from an artist, it could be a very famous artist or even somebody less famous. So, a Vincent van Gogh painting, for example, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The exact same painting, but a replica, is worthless. So and you can, I mean, go down the list of all these physical things. Now I don't know how it's going to affect digital, but handbags, trading cards, sports card, Pokemon cards. People like getting handwritten notes. Still, now they want handwritten notes. Back when you can only handwrite a note, it was whatever, and it's like, wow, printing notes, that's cool. But now that printing is the standard, handwritten is the more valuable item. And imperfections, misspellings. We've seen certain landing pages convert better when there's misspellings. And so my question to you is, there's some examples already out there of people preferring handmade despite its imperfections. Are we going to see that with this new future of AI and video and content creation? Are people going to want the imperfections?
I think it's going to depend on the context, um, in a lot of different ways. I think yes and no. It just again depends on the context. But let's talk about where it may not matter. It's going to be hard to beat a Van Gogh, something that's had a big story that's been around for years on end. Very hard to beat that. It's been around for years. It's going to be hard. But and I could see why some artists would be panicking about AI and Mid Journey and things like that, as they should, depending on what they do. But I also think, much like, let's take that. There's that eBay story that those journalists who bought those random items from eBay for like $1 or $2 or whatever. Then they relisted them with stories. They're able to sell them for X amount, $30, $40, $50. Same item, right? Just different story. So I think that in the case of, let's say, AI and art, yeah, it's going to be hard to beat a Van Gogh. But I also think that somebody may have an AI generated image or something and then put some story behind it that just makes it take off. So that, again, you get lost or hypnotized by the story. And although this AI generated thing might took that person 5 minutes, if that, to create, the story behind that image and why they created it and this and that and the other could add a tremendous amount of value to it. That's one perspective.
That, what you just said, gave me a wow factor. Wow, I did not think about it this way. You just, going back to our segment, you just reframed completely my entire view on this. No joke,
Oh, shit.
because I was looking at this as way simpler, or actually maybe more complicated. Well, either one. I don't know if it's more simple or more complicated, but I was looking at it incorrectly because I was valuing the I wasn't, okay, I'll put it this way. I wasn't valuing the story. It's not that the handmade wooden toy with its imperfections is valuable. It's really not. It's the story that
Yes.
somebody carved it in this way for this reason. Without the story, and so a lot of these, here's what I really realized just now, is that in many of these cases the story isn't outright written like a story. It's more inferred. You start making your own story of what's behind this item, what's behind this trading card, or what's behind this handwritten note. It's more like a, but well, man, it's like you've kind of got my words jumbled because this is such a breakthrough for me. um it can be an explicit story or implicit story, and it's the story that matters, not anything else. Wow.
Yeah. And I think that's fresh in my brain because I had another mastermind last week that you know about, and there was a cat there, Matt Desano. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this information. I don't think it's too sensitive, but I don't know much about Matt Desano. You guys look him up. Some go high level guru. He's a big deal, and whatever he does, he's a big deal. He's also part of our our driven mastermind. He's a member of that. But in this other mastermind, he's faculty. He came in and he spoke. And something that I just love that he said that I'm going to steal, and I hope that other people take the value from this as well, is that, like, what he'll do is, here's an example. I won't use his exact process, but I'll give you a example he shared where, like, you were talking about making a hand. Let's say you bought a handmade chair. To your point, You don't care so much that it's a handmade chair. You'll care about the story behind it. And he won't just tell you, like, when you order that after you've watched the story about it and then you've ordered the chair or whatever, let's say it takes 2 weeks for you to get it because it's handmade and it's custom and all this stuff. If you just ordered the chair and you got it in 2 weeks, you'll probably be like, why in the hell did it take 2 weeks? Amazon's ruined everything. People expect things overnight. After 3 days, they start losing their minds. But what he would do in that case is just say day one, hey, Dimitri, we just cut down this tree in this state. We planted another one because we believe in blah, blah, blah. This is the plot that your tree was cut off. This is the wood we're using, yada, yada, yada. Day two, hey, Dimitri, we just took this wood that we showed you yesterday and we bent it. And we did this and we had this issue. So for 2 weeks, they're doing that. We're just emailing you the story of it being built and what they're doing and the issues. And now think about that whole customer experience where you order the chair, then it shows up 2 weeks later versus you order the chair and you got a story about that chair every single freaking day. You're like watching us. Now you don't give a shit for the most part. You're not going to care that it took 2 weeks because you learned the why and the story. And so I think that's part of why I think that's fresh on my brain, which is why I thought about what I just said.
Well, I think it's brilliant. And going back to our first episode, when we were trying to name this podcast, we were talking about marketing is everything. Now, I kind of have an edit on that. While marketing is everything, but it's really stories is everything.
Yeah.
It's the stories.
And that's what we do in marketing is highlight those stories and the interesting parts about them, right?
What story is your prospect or your customer or your friend or your family or anybody that you're talking to? What story are they is being built in their conscious or subconscious for that matter? That's what we should care about. That's what we need to focus on when we're writing ads, when we're copywriting anything. Dang.
I agree. And it's something that we know, right? You want to enter the conversation that's happening in their head. You want to enter that story that's already happening in their head. And that's where the skill comes into play.
I was kind of thinking about other industries that might be affected. For example, sports, live sports, real professional sports. These people, these athletes, for example, are in some cases are making tens of millions of dollars per year to play a sport. Why? Because they can't be replaced. But let's say through Sora or other technologies, we could simulate leagues. Will it? And if we can build a story around an AI sports league, will the value of real humans playing it drop?
I think it can, depending on the sport. Yes, I think so. And here's two reasons, right? You think, and I could be thinking crazy, but let's just go there.
Let's go
You
there.
had whole arenas in Rome with people watching gladiators and they're watching people kill themselves or kill other people. Very violent stuff. You don't think that people would want to watch that today? There'd be all this uproar. We're not going to do it because we don't want people killed. But if somebody's about to fight to the death and you're walking, you hear people, and they have two swords, these two guys are about to fight to the death, a certain amount of people are trying to get the hell out of there. Another percentage are going to want to watch this. So if you're able to construct something, some kind of sport that's really violent, but nobody's actually getting hurt, people are going to watch that. But we love violence like that. It's going to happen. So if you could do that, I think people would watch that, and especially if it looked real. And then number two, if this was a character that you made up, like this is my, Dimitri Warrior. It looks like a real person. Like you did all this stuff in the background to train him. You invested money in this guy. Now it's like you or whatever. And he goes out there and it's you versus somebody else. Now there's a personal, it's really personal. It's something that you did that you created. Then I think that increases the likelihood of it being interesting. It goes back to the whole fantasy football. I don't give a shit about fantasy football. All of a sudden I draft players that are my players. Now I care about football. It's not that I really care about football. These are my guys that I've invested in and I follow these dudes. I think if you could do that aspect with AI, and maybe even have really violent sports and nobody's actually getting hurt, I don't see why it wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that creates a whole new market for something that probably has demand already. But thinking about it even from an NBA perspective, for example, the biggest stars in the sport are popular, I think, not just for their play, but for the story built around their persona. And just in my a quick story about this weekend, as I was binging through Naval's YouTube, I also caught a few other clips, I have to admit. And one of them was a former Washington Wizards star, and I'm from Washington, D.C., so he was playing while I was growing up there, Gilbert Arenas, who has a new
Yeah.
podcast, and he's talking about getting a endorsement deal. He was a all NBA, all multiple time All Star, but nobody knew his name. And he was wanting to sign with Adidas, and they were offering, I think, a $2 million a year contract. He wanted $4 million a year for 5 years or something like that. So he was one of the best. There was and he, all NBA means you're in the top 5 players in the entire world, effectively, and still he's not getting the recognition. So what he decided to do was throw a party on a crazy party that everyone would be a part of. So he had P Diddy and Lil Wayne and all these music people come out. He paid out of his own pocket their fees, and I think Jay Z came, and so this party became a place where you had to be. It was a must go party if you're anyone. Okay, and so all these people show up for his birthday party. It's a huge success from a marketing perspective, because next time he walked into the Adidas studio, he didn't score a single extra basket. He didn't do anything differently on the court, but Adidas offered him $8 million a year instead of
Hmm.
the two they were initially offering, just like that, because of the one party. That's the story in action. I thought that was incredible. Let me just get your take on that before I finish the thought.
I think it's brilliant. And it's brilliant that he thought about that. Talk about marketing, right? I mean, I wonder how he even came up with that idea, but my take is not long. I think that was a brilliant move.
So as maybe there becomes an AI basketball league where characters are formed in cyberspace and they exist only in cyberspace, I'd be curious to see what storyline it'll be like a mix of WWE or F, whichever one they are, wrestling, and a video game where these stories start playing out. And you know what, a lot of people saying copywriters are going to go out of business. After having this conversation with you, copywriters are going to be the highest paid people on the planet,
Hmm.
because they have so much leverage, more leverage than ever before.
I completely agree. Copywriters and even people say authors will be out of business and think no. I've seen AI generated books are not good. That you give a good writer AI, shit. So I think I agree with you. Same thing with a copywriter. Give a good copywriter AI, yes.
Man, this was a huge breakthrough in terms of, really, I mean, like, we know this, these are marketing principles. Stories is everything, but in the context of AI coming, and do we still care about the human element? And ultimately what we really care about is a story that puts us in a state of hypnosis, effectively. That put your customer in hypnosis, they'll buy anything from you, and whether it's watching your show or
One
buying or whatever.
1,000%. I think one of the guys who does it, one of the guys who does it the best is Billy Jean. I watched a I watched a YouTube commercial where he like made himself a Grand Theft Auto character. Like if you ever played the Grand Theft Auto video games or whatever, he like made that world and made himself a character. I watched the damn ad. It had to be at least three to 5 minutes, but it was just so damn good. He in his ad just took me out of this world. I used to play Grand Theft Auto. I was like, man, this is brilliant. And I respect people who are able to do that, even when I know what you're doing.
Right. You know what they're doing, but it still works. And I saw that ad too. It
Yeah,
was was very nicely done, and good on him. He's been um, coming up with creative ideas into and putting them into ads, tying them into marketing, and then ultimately selling his products on the back end. So good
Hmm.
on that. I mean, that's what we want. That's what we need, and that's probably what's left in terms of what's valuable. It's just creativity.
Yeah, man. And I think that back to what you're talking about with AI, these tools, Sora and all that, it's just very effective weapons in the battle of creativity. And you give me a 50 cal sniper rifle, I'm going to do damage that's not good, right? But you give it to a freaking SEAL who's trained in this, they're going to be lethal. And I think it's the same thing with these AI tools, man. Give it to the right person, lethal.
Well, we're gonna have to practice out on the range soon here in Texas.
Yeah,
So we'll make that happen. We'll get your yeah, we'll do some target practice.
absolutely. You can watch the shit show that is my shooting ability, but I'm gonna have fun.
Well, all right, Chris. Do you have any closing thoughts about any of the stuff we talked about, or anything you want to preview for next time, or anything you want to leave the audience with?
No, I think this was real good. Guys, you don't see all this, but Dimitri puts a lot of thought into this, and this topic was a real good one. And I appreciate the thought that you put into this, both on the show and behind the scenes.
Well, thank you for saying that, and it's a pleasure. It's a lot of fun, and I always look forward to our podcast together. I'm excited for our topics next week. We're not going to preview them; they're going to be a surprise, and we'll see you all next week. Peace.
Peace.